Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Alright, so would y'all like to know why I call this guy the embodiment of pure insanity? Aside from the horrific visions he was subjected to since near birth, it's because his first act straight out the pod was murder, which for a Primarch, pretty much run of the mill. What isn't run of the mill was his second act straight out of the pod, which was cannibalism. And technically that was like his third or fourth act, but that isn't the point. The point is that it was on the list in the first place. So today we are discussing the embodiment of sadism and insanity, that is Konrad Curze. The spawn point for this lunatic was Nostramo, aka Space Iraq, aka Space Afghanistan. A world shrouded in darkness and inhabited by incredibly violent gangs of street goths. Much like Earth's Chirac, the crime rate was high, the poverty rate was higher, and the elites of the society made zero effort to do anything about it. In fact, they actively made the situation worse. And as terrible as all that is, the lives of those living upon Nostramo was about to get a lot worse. Because falling from the sky like a meteorite of sadism is Captain Crunch, and as I said, this man's first meal wasn't titty juice or smashed up vomit. His first meal was that sweet, sweet gray matter that sits inside of your skull. Fucking gross. And to make matters even worse, our little psycho thought that shit was delectable, so our man began role-playing as a zombie. If anyone's played the prototype game, she'll be familiar with this next ability because eating a person's brains would cause this man to go on a serious acid trip. He'd view the world through his victim's eyes, seeing all the absolutely horrid shit that they did, who they did it to, and he would also saw who helped him commit these acts. Because apparently everyone on this planet is a criminal, which just leads to so much infuriating plot fuckery later, but we haven't gotten there yet. So our man goes about conquering his planet through a truly unique fashion. He becomes a serial killer. Kinda like Dexter, if Dexter was 9 feet tall, a cannibal, and just another normal serial killer. And then he just brutally murders his way to the top. No gathering of armies, no amassing of political capital, nope, just traumatizing several generations of an entire planet. That's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. Now, as I alluded to earlier, our man is plagued by these hellacious visions, right? Straight out the pod, he knew exactly who he was and pretty much what his purpose was. He sees how he and many of his brothers are going to die, and he can get the gist that there's going to be some serious Space Marine on Space Marine action. And fucking pause. Why the fuck did I word it like that? There's going to be a civil war in the future. That's what I meant to say. So after he's gone on his little terror rampage and supposedly with some massive air quotes here conquered his planet, he has visions that a delegation of his bros is going to come grab him and take him away from Space Afghanistan. So he has his terrified worker drones build him a throne, and not Dexter sits in that throne for 4 days because his visions are a little shaky, so he doesn't know exactly when they're going to be there. He was about to get up from the throne to go take a piss, but the ship started descending from orbit, so he sits back down. He immediately regrets that decision because the four of them start disembarking their troops and a grand procession begins to slowly make their way to cheese curds. Fun fact, as the procession makes its way to Curze, the Emperor is just casually blinding everyone he passes. Like, oh, you've been living in fear and you came here to catch a glimpse of the man that you think is going to save you, but he's definitely not going to save you from any of this? Here, have a life-altering disability. Go fuck yourself. The Emperor never ceases to find ways to tell people that he hates them. Anyways, back to Captain Crunch, who is on the verge of pissing himself, but is just so hellbent on looking like some edgelord that he just sticks it out. Finally, his brothers do come to stand before him and they all begin to introduce themselves. The embodiment of daddy issues and Primarch in name only Lorgar of the Wordbearers, the femboy Fulgrim of the Emperor's harem and his boyfriend Ferris Manmeat of the Iron Dicks, and last, well, Lorgar is here, so technically second to last, the Fister himself. Now, as they all come up to introduce themselves to this absolute douche canoe, he just blankly stares at them. Like, come on, bro. Even Fulgrim and the wannabe Primarch have gone out and conquered shit. What have you done? Terrified some mortals? Wow, what an absolute badass we have over here. Anyways, so after giving the whole tough guy act to his brothers, the Emperor steps up, and what does Billy Badass over here do? He drops to the floor like a child, begins weeping, pisses himself, and then tries to pull his own eyes out of his socket. Granted, this little spasm is caused by one of those horrid visions we talked about. So the Emps runs up to Curze and is like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are you doing? And Curze is like, what you made me to do, father? And Emps is like, I haven't even told you who the fuck I am yet. And Dollar Tree Dexter is like, I have seen things. And Not God is like, why are you so fucking creepy? And Off-Brand Dexter is like, because this is how you made me. And Emps is like, and I immediately regret that decision. Now tell me what the fuck I am supposed to do with the population on this planet. And Creamsicles is like, are my subjects not up to your standards, father? He then points to a random man who immediately collapses to the ground in a pool of tears, has a heart attack, and dies on the fucking spot. And the Emperor looks at him and is like, no, they're gonna rebel the moment we leave. Off-Brand Dexter is like, impossible, I have brought peace to this world. And Emps is like, no, you have brought generational trauma to a planet the likes of which hasn't been seen since I... Oh my god, I've made a terrible mistake. And Curze's like, wait, what? And the Emp's like, shut up, boy, follow me. And they jump into the Emperor Mobile and rush Curze back to Terra to get him some serious therapy. However, despite Not God's best efforts, Not Dexter was truly lost to his own lunacy. When therapy doesn't work, Emps pairs him up with the femboy, thinking that if Curze could just get in touch with his feminine side, maybe he'd be a little less creepy and murdery. And this does not go as planned. You see, our man Evil Dexter was not used to seeing people that were clean and healthy looking, and the femboy was obsessed with both of those things, and he was so good at it that Not Dexter thought that he was a chick. So Evil Dexter walks up to Fulgrim and is like, I think you're pretty. And Fulgrim is like, I have a boyfriend. And Evil Dexter, being evil and weird and stupid, was like, can I hug you? To which Fulgrim very quickly responded, you may certainly not. And this sparked Curze to become Fulgrim's biggest stalker. Now, the HR department of the Imperium is fucking trash, so despite Fulgrim's numerous harassment complaints, like in many real-world companies, the Amps continue to force Fulgrim to work with the stalker because profit over safety or basic human decency, but back to talking about 40k. Eventually, the Emperor does get tired of Fulgrim sending him 69 harassment complaints a day, so he reunites Not Dexter with his legion. Now, I'd love to tell you the 8th were some honorable warriors and the coming of their father led them down a tragic path, but no. They were used all the way back during the Unification Wars to inflict, quote, terror and retribution, end quote. So, like, how can anybody really be surprised that these guys rebelled? It's like the Emperor made them to rebel. Regardless, Curze and his legion's entire role leading up to the Heresy can be summarized in one sentence. And then they brutally tortured them before killing them and going to find more people to torture. Also, surprise surprise, when fuckface McGee over here left Nostramo, there was a rebellion. No one saw that coming. And the new regime started sending them these violent, twisted criminals to, quote unquote, poison the Legion. Which, the Legion was twisted and demented to begin with. How are you gonna, you know, we're not even gonna go there. Moving on. So flash forward to the breakout of the Heresy, and for whatever reason, the Legion that is most definitely traitors, they just haven't shown it yet, are sent to deal with the actual traitors. Like, seriously, Not God, whose side are you on? Anyways, we all know how Istvan went. It was a very bad day at the office for the Loyalists. The femboy kills his boyfriend, Diddy tries to kill Vulcan, but Vulcan, as we know, has God mode on, and the Dark Knight himself is about to kill the wannabe Primarch when our boy Not Dexter jumps in to save Lorgar. And so the Dark Knight and Not Dexter get to scrapping, and since they pretty much are mirrors of one another, this is some anime level boxing that we get. Eventually though, the Dark Knight looks around the battlefield, sees the devastation of his sons and his brother legions, and makes the tactically sound decision of, yo, we gotta get the fuck out of here. So he goes to sound the retreat, and Not Dexter grabs him and is all like, don't run from me, Corax. And Corax looks at him and is like, yeah, no, fuck you, fuck your traitorous legion, fuck your war master, I'm out of here. Fires his jetpack at full power and dips out. While Corax does manage to gather small bands of his sons to make an escape, Vulcan is taken prisoner. And while I outlined most of the torture inflicted upon Vulcan in his video, I left out one part that is incredibly badass, and honestly, it's criminal of me that I left it out, so allow me to correct that error. So after Not Dexter tortures Vulcan in a wide variety of ways and found himself unable to kill his brother, he decides to box Vulcan, and if Vulcan wins, he let the man go. But then Cheese Curds makes this impossible to maneuver through maze that Vulcan has to go through before the fight, so clearly he doesn't really want to fight that badly. When Vulcan does manage to make it through the space maze, because, as I've stated, he's Space Jesus, Cream Pie then makes what can only be called a fatal mistake, because he knew Vulcan's hammer had a teleporter inside of it, and so in his stupid little head, he was going to allow Vulcan to grab the hammer, Vulcan would try to teleport away, Then Custard would reveal that Vulcan can't teleport away because how awesome and cool his Maze of Madness was. And then Vulcan's mind would be shattered by dread or some shit like that, and Curze would get the easy dub. Now, his plan seems to be going great all the way up till the point that Vulcan gets his hands on the hammer. So Curze is all like, "You can't escape me, Vulcan. My special room blocks your teleporter." And Vulcan cuts him off and is like, yo, big dog, you forgot something in this plan of yours. And Curze is sitting there not knowing how fucked he's about to be and is all like, "What's that?" And then Vulcan gets this big shit-eating grin on his face and is like, "It's still a hammer." And then proceeds to absolutely pound Not Dexter into next century. Pause. Then as an added fuck you, Vulcan activates his teleporter and it just fucking works. Did this man even test his anti-teleportation chamber before this fight? Regardless, this makes Vulcan Not Dexter's new obsession and he starts to go hunt him, but Horus is all like, "What the fuck are you doing? We're in the middle of a rebellion. I need you to focus." Curze is all like, "I don't want to focus, I want to torture, then kill." Horus is like, "No, I need your legion to act as my vanguard and I need you to make sure our production lines stay efficient." Because Horus had looked at the service record of the Nostramans and was like, "Damn, these motherfuckers are efficient." So he basically makes Curze a logistics officer, which, why would you do that? Did you not look at, like, I don't know, the death statistic on Nostramo? Or the fact that if you lived to the age of 20, you were pretty much considered a grizzled veteran on that planet? Much like many other cities in the real world, but we ain't going there. This idea was unsurprisingly a terrible one because Curze is now fully insane and starts killing a lot of worker drones. He kills so many worker drones, in fact, that the traders actually start to have some supply issues. He only had the job for a few months, so I really need to ask, like, how many people were you killing, bro? Eventually, Horus is like, "Okay, enough of that. Office work is clearly not your forte. Go over there and murder. Do something useful for once." So he sends Curze to be a part of the Thramas Crusade, which, as I discussed in my Mr. Lion video, was meant to delay the First Legion from interfering with the Heresy, as well as to strike at the flanks of the Imperium. Which during this time, 3 years into the fighting mind you, this guy actually calls a parlay with Mr. Lion, who for whatever reason decides to go meet with Not Dexter. Not Dexter then proceeds to start talking all kinds of shit, which really pisses off Mr. Lion, who then rocks Cheese Curds in the face. They get to scrapping. Not Dexter starts strangling Mr. Lion before one of the Lion's sons runs up to Not Dexter, and with the fury that shook the heavens, he cried out, "Leroy Jenkins," before stabbing the crazy fuck in his back and saving Mr. Lion. Now, during this encounter, the Night Lords and Curze do manage to conduct a fighting withdrawal. However, soon after this, Mr. Lion, being the absolute strategic genius that he is, catches them in an ambush. This time, Mr. Lion is able to shatter the resolve of the Night Lords, making them basically combat ineffective for the rest of the Heresy. He also manages to capture Curze. However, when Mr. Lion gets to Macragge, the Night Haunter is able to escape. He does what he loves doing the most, which is to torture people, before eventually being caught, and I gotta say, it takes way too long to capture this man. Like, I have a feeling the number of people being flayed alive before Curze escaped was pretty low. So when a lot of people start showing up being flayed alive, you'd think that they'd be like, "Oh yeah, let's go check over there," but no. Eventually, the Lion and Smurf Daddy do decide to go check out the increased number of flayings, and wouldn't you know it, they find Curze. Fucking genius. An anime-level boxing event takes place before this man detonates some charges that he had set around the arena before the fight takes place, and he escapes like the fucking Joker. Our man Not Dexter then tracks down Papa Smurf's adoptive mother, and he's approaching her, expecting her to feel the same fear and terror as pretty much everybody else that he's encountered. And that is not what happens. She looks at this icon of despair and dread, looks him in his cold, heartless eyes, and is like, "Go to hell." Curze is very upset that this mortal woman is just standing up to him, and he elects to skip the torture and go straight for the killing. However, Space Jesus is there to save the day, and they get to boxing. Their duel is also epic as fuck. Curze kills Vulcan a few times, but our man has God mode on, so he just stands back up and keeps scrapping. Everything was going absolutely great until the writers brought in the worst character in all of 40k, John Grimbledick. And as I've stated in the past, I hate this character, and I hate the amount of times that the authors just shove them down our throats. So fucking Johnny Boy over here just banishes Curze to the warp, and that's how that epic duel ends. As much as I really don't like Curze, at least he 100% belongs in the 40k setting, unlike some other people, Johnny Boy. Like, the rest of the Cabal is whatever. I think they're silly, but none of them piss me off like John does. Anyways, Curze does not have a good time in the warp. Shocking, I know. He sees his father crippled in the unending war that's going to ensue after the Heresy. This, unsurprisingly, has some effects, and eventually the warp shits him back out into Macragge. Convenient. He then tries to ambush Not God's bestest boy. Curze takes a hostage and then tries to convince the bestest boy that their father lied about everything, and he even tried to warn the vampire about the vampire's fate. However, he was a fucking raving lunatic by this point, so we can't really blame the bestest boy for not exactly believing him. Sanguinius then hits Curze with some talk noijutsu, which causes Not Dexter to be like, oh wait, am I the baddie? This internal self-reflection leads him to surrender to the vampire, who is about to strike Curze down, but then shows his brother mercy. The vampire saw how twisted and broken his brother was, but he couldn't bring himself to kill him, and he actually wanted to try and redeem him. Bold move, Cotton. The Night Haunter again fucks off to go torture more innocent people because fuck character development. The Lion catches up to him again, they box again, but seeing as this like their 100th duel, and the last one got ruined by fucking Johnny, I can't be fucked to make this one sound interesting. Curze gets caught again. I go over these events in my Mr. Lion video. We're gonna skip to Davin, where for the first time in his life, shit was not playing out how Curze had envisioned it, and this causes a bit of a panic attack to ensue. The vampire, who is still trying to convince this man that he can be saved, is like, brother, it's called choice. We all have it. You aren't tied to one destiny. Which almost breaks through to our man here, but poor Curze is just too mentally broken. So after defeating the demons and making it back to his flagship, the vampire is on his way to Terra. However, he doesn't exactly want to bring the embodiment of insanity with him, so he puts our man in a sarcophagus and shoots his ass into space. Curze floats around for a long time before eventually being picked up by some salvagers 30 years post-Heresy. He casually slaughters and eats the crew that found him before making his way to Tsagualsa. There he builds himself a meat scarecrow and is talking to it like it's the Emperor as he waits for the assassin he knows is coming to kill him. Eventually the Emperor does talk to him, and I don't want to spoil this conversation because I've ruined enough good conversations in the Horus Heresy series, but it's in the Primarch novel. If you want to go check it out, highly recommend it, 10 out of 10. It was so good, in fact, that it made me rewrite this entire video because, full transparency, I hated this guy for a while. Don't get me wrong, I always thought he was a perfect character for 40k. This is not a John Grammaticus situation. I'm just a loyalist at heart, but I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, Curze has become far more interesting to me now because I wonder if maybe the warp hadn't fucked with him, would he still be the same, or would he have been this icon of justice and virtue? Regardless, the Emperor's assassin does eventually reach Curze, whose last words were fucking dope, but allow me to read you just the last sentence this man uttered. Quote, "Death is nothing but vindication." So, what do y'all think of Not God's most insane boy? Is this another Angron fucked from the start situation, or do you think Curze chose the path of insanity? I've wasted far too much of your time though, so this has been Konrad Curze, Poorly Explained. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to anyone that's subscribed. We're almost at 1,000, that's pretty dope. The Alpha Legion and their very confusing Primarchs will be coming out soonish. However, that one has turned out to be a little bit more challenging, so don't be surprised if 1 or 2 videos come out before them. If y'all have any other suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful morning, day, night, whatever. Deuces. He casually slaughters and eats the crew that found him before making his way to Tsagualsa. Fuck.